thanks to activities like strolling along the Seine, relaxing in green spaces, and enjoying residential zones with fewer people around, Paris in the summer is a pretty good idea. In this travel guide, we're going to spend a relaxing few days in Paris exploring all of the French capital's summer activities. Canal Saint-Martin is a 4.6-kilometre stretch of waterway that reaches between Canal de l'Ourcq and the River Seine. The canal was completed in 1825 and features 9 locks, which represent around a 25-metre descent. It's also home to 2 rotating bridges, which allow cars to cross and then boats the rest of the time. Today, Canal Saint-Martin is part of the 10th Arrondissement. This is a really cool place to come, as this is where a lot of locals come, and they come to have picnics, have drinks along the waterfront. There's also loads of bars and cafes in this area. If you go shopping on this street, you can find some pretty unique stores, and my favorite part of all is that there's so much street art here, and because it's street art, no 2 visits to the area are the same. The canal is drained every 10 to 15 years, and during those times they find the most unusual things, including dozens of bikes, and last time they even found a gun. There are 10 bridges which cross this canal, and if you wait long enough, despite the fact that there's less traffic here than on the River Seine, you'll definitely get to see the locks in action. It's quite the show, as you'll see all of the locks open as well as the rotating bridges. If you feel like it, you can even go on a boat ride along the canal. Artazar is honestly one of my favourite souvenir shops in Paris. Nestled right alongside the water, step in at any given moment and you'll be greeted by a wide array of prints, books, and other keepsakes to help remember your special trip to Paris. Holy Belly Cafe is something of a Parisian institution when it comes to the brunch scene. Founded in 2013, their signature dish has to be their pancake stacks, but there are quite a few other options on the menu, including seasonal dishes. We're now headed towards the Seine via Le Marais. This is an area that was once swampy marshland and has since been transformed into a beautiful district. This is also an area where you can really feel all of the closures that happen every August in Paris, as there are so many shops closed up and down all of the streets here. Blackbird Coffee sits right in the heart of Le Marais and is the perfect spot to get a quick coffee in a cozy setting. Hôtel de Ville is the main town hall of Paris, and the area in front of it has now been transformed into an urban forest. Most of the trees are 20 to 30 years old and come from Germany or the Netherlands, and some of them are already 10 meters in height. It's honestly pretty cool here and very refreshing to be in. The Parisian bouquinistes are as iconic to the city as the Eiffel Tower itself, so much so that the River Seine is often nicknamed the city between two bookshelves. Notre Dame is looking pretty splendid these days, and while we didn't have time to queue to get inside during this video, if you want a full guided tour, we have one on the channel. From the beginning of July to the end of August, the Mayor of Paris' office runs a temporary event called Paris Plage. This is where the right bank of the Seine is filled with different festivities, activities, and palm trees. Honestly, walking along the Seine is pretty enjoyable no matter what time of year you visit Paris, as the Rive Droite area has been car-free for quite a few years now. It's one of the best ways to enjoy the Haussmannian architecture. I was honestly pretty surprised at the sheer number of activities available on the Seine, all for free. This included table football, which the French refer to as baby foot. One of the more unusual sights are the artificial beaches complete with sun lounges set up along the waterfront. There are also some really thoughtful touches, like this free sunscreen station. One of my favourite places to stroll along the Seine is in the Pont Neuf area. This bridge's name translates into English as New Bridge, but it's a bit of a misnomer as this is the oldest still standing bridge in the city. Another area of central Paris I particularly appreciate is the second arrondissement. I actually used to live here in the Rue Montorgueil area and love seeing all of the pedestrian priority roads and the cafes spilling out onto the streets. We then headed towards the Louvre, which, as you might already know, is the largest museum in the world. It's also a pretty special place to enjoy golden hour thanks to the way that the light hits the buildings. If you're visiting Paris in the summer, then one thing you might want to see is the Olympic balloon. This was installed for the Olympics in 2024, but proved to be so popular that they brought it back for the summer of 2025. Depending on what month you visit, will also change the time at which the balloon rises. Although we attended the balloon's takeoff, I would say that actually being there for takeoff is a bit underwhelming, and the best view of all is once the balloon is actually in the sky. The 8th arrondissement isn't really home to many top attractions. Of course, it's home to the Champs-Élysées as well as the Arc de Triomphe, but the real thing here is that it's very residential. As a result, this is where real Parisians come to hang out. In the parks here, there are several small house museums, and it's also a very luxurious area, which means that it's home to embassies, as well as very, very exclusive palace hotels. This area is also home to some gems and some pretty beautiful architecture, some of which we'll show you over the course of this afternoon. The best time to visit is undoubtedly during the summertime, as this area is very verdant and green. Even the buildings are mainly covered in lots of plants. in 1778, Philippe d'Orléans, who was a cousin of Louis XVI, purchased a bucolic field in the outskirts of Paris. He then transformed it into a lovely English park, and in 1860 what remained of what had been the park that he had developed was sold to the city of Paris. Today you can visit and see historic follies, enjoy the peace and calm here, and just wander around. As you probably already know, during the latter half of the 19th century, Baron Haussmann completely transformed the city, leading to the Paris that we all know and love today. As part of that project, the park was purchased in 1860 and then opened to the public in 1861. One of the coolest things about visiting the park today, as opposed to other parks in Paris, is that there are plenty of little follies scattered across the green space. One of the oldest is the Little Pyramid just behind me. This is based on an Egyptian pyramid, and it dates all the way back to 1778 when the park was actually created, making it the oldest still standing folly in the park today. This bridge is particularly spectacular to photograph, but the real draw of the park has to be the colonnade spanning the water next to all of the ducks, and that's just behind me. As well as your usual pigeons, thanks to all of the greenery here, you have a wide assortment of birds, including ducks and even parakeets. In fact, the park is so beautiful that it was once painted by Monet and Caillebotte. A lot of people complain that the 8th is a bit boring because you don't have a huge number of cafes or shops here. However, if you're an architecture lover, then strolling the streets is an absolute dream. The Paris Pagoda is probably one of the most unique forms of architecture in the landscape of the 8th arrondissement. It was built in 1896 by a wealthy businessman as a gift for his wife Amandine. A few years after that, it was actually transformed into an iconic cinema. The Arc de Triomphe is probably the most iconic place to visit in the 8th arrondissement. This is based on an arch in Rome and was part of Baron Haussmann's master plan to create a grand city. From the Arc de Triomphe, there are 8 radiating boulevards. That's why it's so loud, because this is such a busy roundabout. And the weird thing about it is that the people coming onto the roundabout have priority over the people actually on it already, which makes for quite a chaotic driving situation. The view from the top is pretty great, but you do have to queue for quite a long time, and we don't have that much time today. One of the most famous avenues coming off of the Arc de Triomphe is of course the Champs-Élysées, but I don't necessarily recommend that you visit because it's very, very touristy and it's mainly big name brands along the street. Église de la Madeleine was built between 1764 and 1842. It's pretty unusual in that it actually resembles a Greek temple and doesn't at all represent the form of a cross, which is more common with churches in France. Today you can go inside for free thanks to a law that means that all churches in France are free to visit. It's honestly pretty spectacular and probably the largest church in the 8th arrondissement. From here, you can see onto our next destination, which is Place de la Concorde, and behind that you can see Les Invalides. Place de la Concorde was once known as Place de la Révolution because this is where most of the guillotining took place during the French Revolution. Today is a gateway to the Jardin des Tuileries as well as the end of the Champs-Élysées. From here, you can see several amazing monuments, including the Eiffel Tower. Place de la Concorde itself is home to Musée de la Marine, as well as the Luxor obelisk. The Luxor obelisk was carved over 3,000 years ago, during the reign of Ramesses II, as part of a pair of obelisks to stand at the portal of the entrance to the Luxor temple. If you're in Paris during the summer, then one thing I really recommend doing is going down for a picnic by the Seine. Here you can watch the boats go by and enjoy golden hour alongside all of the other Parisians still in town. We had a pretty leisurely start to our next day, and so we decided to head to Marais Café. This delightful little eatery in the 12th Arrondissement is fully vegan, and they serve up all kinds of delicious Japanese cuisine in a cozy setting. The 15th arrondissement lies to the south of the Seine, and it's honestly quite residential, so there aren't a great deal of activities here, but you do have amazing views onto the Eiffel Tower. In the summer, there's also a very unique activity you can do if you're feeling brave enough. There are actually several spots along the Seine where you can go swimming. Now, there are a few conditions to this that I read online. One of them is that I think you have to take some sort of mini swimming test. There's also height restrictions and age restrictions. And when you are swimming, I think you have to swim with a buoy at all times. That being said, it's completely free. And to be honest, it's quite a fun activity considering that it's pretty safe because they actually test the water quality every day. It is a bit weird to think about though to swim in the Seine. Now, the site only accommodates 200 people at a time, including 150 swimmers, so you'll probably have to wait in a queue for quite a long time in order to access the site, as there doesn't seem to be a minimum or maximum amount of time that you have to swim. Pont de Bir Hakeim is one of the most unique bridges in Paris, and it can also be found close to the river swimming area. It was constructed between 1903 and 1905 and is 237 meters in length. What's particularly unique about it is that there's this cycle track and pedestrian track underneath the bridge, and on the top there's actually the metro. In times gone by, there would have been lots of islands littering the River Seine. Today, just 3 survive, and the only artificial one is Île-aux-Cygnes, which translates into French as Swan Island. Here, it's pedestrian only. You can wander through the trees, see the birds on the water, and enjoy views of the Eiffel Tower. The Petit Palais is directly opposite from the Grand Palais, and it's pretty nice to visit as it's completely free. The building is perhaps best known on social media for its secret garden, which is home to a little cafe. Petit Palais itself was constructed in 1900 for the Universal Exhibition. Today, it's home to the City of Paris Museum of Fine Arts, and I would personally recommend going perhaps an hour or so before closing time, as there are definitely fewer people around at this time. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Europe travel content. See you next week.